Hi, my name's Lizzie Summers and I'm a clinical psychologist in the Clinical Health Psychology team at North Bristol NHS Trust.
And I'm Nikita Werrett. I'm an assistant psychologist in the Clinical Health Psychology team, also in the North Bristol NHS Trust.
So this session we'll be thinking about psychological and social well-being in lung health, and we'll be focusing specifically on managing anxiety. Please also see our other video on managing low mood and fatigue if you feel this would be helpful. We are going to think about how living with a lung condition might affect our psychological and social well-being, and why it's important to think about these things. We'll then go on to think about what might help, and finally we'll think about additional support avenues should you wish to pursue these. The most important thing to note is that everyone's different and one size doesn't fit all. You might notice that some things feel more relevant to you than others. That's okay, and you might notice that some things are relevant to other people or your loved ones. So we'll start by thinking about common challenges people face when living with a lung condition. So many people tell us that it's not uncommon to experience a whole range of emotions. Sometimes people feel frustrated, angry, sad, or nervous about the future. Sometimes people have changes in their confidence levels, and they might become more isolated because they feel less confident to go out and do things that they used to enjoy doing. This can lead to isolation and a reduction in enjoyable activities. Another commonly cited problem is dealing with uncertainty in the future. Sometimes things can feel quite overwhelming, attending lots of appointments, managing medication, and perhaps coping with other people's demands. For some people, it might affect mobility or energy levels, and some people might feel more fatigued. Loss can also be something some people experience. This might be loss of enjoyable activities, or perhaps changes in roles in your family. These are all understandable feelings and experiences, and living with a lung condition can feel hard to manage at times, and it can have an impact on many areas of our life. So the research also tells us that those who are diagnosed with a lung condition are more likely to experience low mood and anxiety. It's also common for people to experience more fatigue. This doesn't affect everyone, and these things can often be seen on a continuum, so you might have good days and harder days. This talk will focus specifically on managing anxiety, and because anxiety can have a significant impact on our breathlessness and quality of life and exacerbation rates. So Nikita, what is anxiety?
So anxiety is a word often used to describe feelings of unease, worry, and fear. It includes both emotions and the physical sensations that we might experience when we are worried or nervous about something, and it can lead us to act in a certain way. Anxiety can be thought of as existing on a spectrum. So some people can experience low levels of worry at certain times, but they can also experience debilitating levels of anxiety and panic.
And who experiences anxiety?
Everyone experiences anxiety. Anxiety is a normal and very common response. It's related to our fight, flight, freeze response, and it's a normal physical reaction when we feel threatened. But we'll come on to talk about this a little bit later.
How does anxiety make us feel?
So an anxiety-producing situation can lead us to have uncomfortable feelings such as worry, fear, panic, or just feeling overwhelmed.
And what might we do when we're anxious?
So sometimes when we feel anxious, we might feel like we need to escape or avoid the situation. So an example of this might be if we were in an overcrowded shop. We might just feel like we need to escape and get out. Or if we make plans, sometimes we feel like we might not want to stick to them.
And how do we feel in our body? How do we feel physically when we're anxious?
So physically, we may become breathless, our heart might race, we can become clammy, sweaty, and we may even get bowel symptoms. So we might not be aware of how we feel emotionally or physically. We might just feel like our thoughts are going 100 miles per hour and that we aren't able to see the wood through the trees. Sometimes we feel anxious and fearful, and our fight, flight, freeze response can be automatically activated. I will now show you a short video.
Our brain's response to a perceived threat, real or otherwise, is known as the fight, flight, or freeze response. So what is the fight, flight, freeze response? I'll use a hypothetical example. If a lion walked into the room right now, what would you do? Some people might try to find the nearest exit. Some people might try and fight it. And some people might freeze and not be able to move. Like all other animals, human beings have evolved ways to help us protect ourselves from dangerous, life-threatening situations. When you feel under threat, like if a lion suddenly walked into this room, your body releases hormones, such as adrenaline and cortisol, which help physically prepare you to either fight the danger, run away from it, or in some cases, to play dead or freeze. These hormones can make you feel more alert so you can act faster. They can make your heart beat faster to carry blood quicker to where it's needed most. Then, when you feel the danger has passed, your body releases other hormones to help your muscles relax, which may cause you to shake. This is commonly called the fight or flight or freeze response. It's something that happens automatically in our bodies, and we have no control over it. In modern society, we don't usually face situations where we need to physically fight or flee from danger. We don't face a lion walking into the room. But our physiological response to feeling threatened is still the same. This response can be stimulated in a whole range of situations. Most stresses we face in our lives now are generally not a threat to our life, but sometimes our brain can misinterpret situations, set off false alarms, and react as if these things are a major threat. When we are faced with life stresses and challenges, for example, a family argument or stress at work, our automatic physiological response can be triggered in a similar way as if it would be if a lion walked into the room. This overreaction of the nervous system leads to a false activation of the fight, flight, or freeze response.
So we've heard a bit about what anxiety is. An anxiety-producing situation might lead to uncomfortable feelings and physical sensations. These uncomfortable feelings and physical sensations are often controlled by us by trying to avoid the situation. Examples of avoidance might be avoiding going to visit a friend, procrastinating on challenging tasks, staying at home instead of going out, or perhaps avoiding calling the doctor about a health concern. Avoiding an anxiety-provoking situation gives us an immediate sense of relief. The feelings and physical sensations associated with the anxiety lessen, but only temporarily. What usually happens is that the fear that initially led you to avoiding the situation increases or worsens, and the brain learns that when the anxiety-producing situation is avoided, the uncomfortable feelings and physical sensations go away. So we never prove to ourselves that we can cope with the situation. Instead, we teach ourselves that we can't cope with the situation and we need to avoid it to get rid of the difficult feelings. So as you can see, the cycle of anxiety and avoidance might lead to a short-term relief of feelings of anxiety, but we then develop the belief that we can't cope with the situation, and in turn it leads to increased anxiety. We will now watch another short video which explains the avoidance of emotions.
When we are feeling anxious about something, in the moment we think the feeling will never go away and it will keep increasing. This is our perceived anxiety trajectory. This can lead us to want to escape the situation. This might be through avoidance of the situation, or it could be through other things like using distraction. Sometimes people might use external coping mechanisms to reduce these feelings. An example of this might be when you're worried about something, you might have a glass of wine to help you relax. It is useful to have coping skills, but if we avoid the feeling, then we never see that no feeling lasts forever. What actually happens with all feelings is that they plateau. No feeling continues to become more and more intense. All feelings plateau and then over time reduce. If we accept the feeling, notice it and acknowledge it, and learn it isn't going to keep escalating, and that we can cope with the threat or the situation that we are facing, then over time, when we are in the same situation, we won't feel so anxious. The more we are faced with the same situation, the less anxiety we will experience. For example, on the first day of a new job, you will feel extremely anxious. You may want to avoid going to the new job, but the more that you go, the more that you can see that you can cope with your anxiety. And over time, you probably won't experience any anxiety at all on a normal day at work.
So how does anxiety affect our breathing? As we know, living with a lung condition can cause shortness of breath. And experiencing shortness of breath can cause us to worry or feel anxious or panicky. And these anxious feelings can then lead us to experience an increasedness in shortness of breath and further anxiety. We might become anxious about being breathless, and this can lead to this vicious cycle, which can increase our breathlessness and reduce our activity and our confidence. And it can also lead to fatigue, which might impact on the management of our lung condition. So a lung condition can cause shortness of breath, which can lead us to have feelings of anxiety and panic, which in turn causes us to have increasedness in shortness of breath and further feelings of anxiety, which then really causes us to reduce our activity and lose our confidence and become fatigued, which then reiterates the fact that our lung condition causes us shortness of breath. So when we are anxious, we tend to breathe more quickly and we don't fill our lungs as much as we could. We usually just use the top part of our lungs, and in these situations it can be useful to practice relaxation and breathing techniques.
There are many benefits of relaxation. Relaxation is a good way to reduce anxiety, muscle tension, and it can help when you spot those early signs. It can help clear our mind, and it's something that is useful to practice before we really need it. Many people find it difficult to fully relax, and it might be that we need to practice techniques so that they're there ready for us. Learning how to fully relax is a skill, and like any skill, it takes practice. So for some people, they might find it useful to read or watch television, or perhaps do some exercise to relax. But for others, they need more structured methods to help them relax. So an example of this is things like guided relaxation and guided meditations. If you're interested in looking at guided practices, if you go onto YouTube or other search engines and put in guided meditation or guided relaxation, there will be a whole range of exercises that you can try. It's important not to discount the first one that you try if it perhaps doesn't quite fit for you, and to try a few to see what works. There are also phone applications available if you have a smartphone. For example, Headspace and Calm offer guided meditation practices. And we have also recorded a safe space visualization exercise which will be available for you on the platform. So what else might help when we're feeling anxious? There are a few other things that could be helpful for you. Firstly, acceptance. Secondly, self-compassion. And thirdly, knowing when to seek further support. So firstly, thinking about acceptance. There are lots of things in life we can't control. In fact, all we can control is ourselves right now in this very moment. We can't control what happens in 5 minutes or 5 hours. We might be able to influence what happens, but ultimately, all we can control is this very moment. If we can work on accepting how we feel right now and accept what's happening right now, this can bring quite a lot of relief to our life. Often when we're anxious or low, we spend a lot of time thinking about things that have happened in the past or things that might happen in the future. And this can make us feel more low. These are things that we can't control. The idea of acceptance isn't about giving up or feeling defeated, but sometimes we need to make space for difficult feelings and know that emotions and feelings come and go. If we spend a lot of time struggling with thoughts and sensations and feelings, we're likely to end up feeling more unhappy. Another component that can help when we're feeling low in mood is self-compassion. Ask yourself, how do I talk to myself? Am I self-compassionate or am I self-critical? Often we are our own biggest critics. Often we wouldn't say the things that we say to ourselves to a close friend or loved one. We often give ourselves quite a hard time about things that we perhaps can't do as well as we used to, or things we haven't achieved in the day. We rarely would say the same things to people that we care about. It can be helpful to start to notice your inner critic, and any time you find yourself being hard on yourself, just check in and ask, would I say this to someone I care about? If we're constantly putting ourselves down all the time, it's likely to have a significant impact on our mood, our self-esteem and our confidence. And finally, obviously this is a short presentation and we can't cover everything, and there are other avenues of support should you feel you would like to access these. So as usual, if you have any concerns relating to your physical health, it's advisable that you contact your GP or your respiratory team. If you have concerns relating to your general mental health, so perhaps experiencing low mood and anxiety that's not related to your physical health condition, then again you could discuss this with your GP, or you could access Vitaminds, part of the Vita Health group, and the website is available on the screen. Vitaminds also provide a range of different support on their website. And finally, if you notice that you're struggling particularly with your feelings relating to your physical health problem, then the best thing to do is talk to your pulmonary rehab team, or if you are under a consultant, then discuss that with them and they can direct you to the most appropriate source of support. We hope you found this video helpful, and please remember there are other videos available on the platform should you wish to access these. Thank you.
Thank you.